I know what you're thinking. You see all of these sequins and you're terrified. Me too. Just kidding. This is gonna be an easy one. Actually, you're gonna be shocked. We're gonna take in this gorgeous Little Mermaid prom dress through this mesh side panel. This is gonna be a fun one. And very minimal sewing, easy. Let's get started. Let's dive right in. I'm gonna show you first how I pinned it on her, and then we're gonna change it up a little bit for the actual sewing portion. So while she was wearing it, I tucked the mesh kind of under this front side panel. So right here is where we're talking about, and that is where we're gonna take it in. The thing is about this, I actually wanted, she would like a little more coverage on that side panel. It's kind of wide on her. And so we're gonna take this amount entirely from the mesh panel. Coincidentally, that does actually make it a little bit easier for us. Let me show you. So on the other side, what I've done is I've pinched out essentially a dart, just like this. So I've taken the amount that I pinned on the sequin side and the amount that I pinned on the mesh side and taken it entirely from the mesh. And I did that in a little bit of an uneven dart, taking the most at the top and then running down to 0 before it meets up with the sequins at the bottom, so you can see where my pins are. So we're all ready to jump over to the sewing machine and sew as close to that sequined edge as we possibly can, but good news, we are not actually sewing through the sequins. We're only sewing through these 2 layers of mesh. Then we'll have this dart, and all we'll have to do is hand sew it and tack it back. So like I said, very easy. Let's jump over to the sewing machine and get started. We've got our standard foot on here right now, but to be able to sew the dart the smaller dart that I want to put here, I'm gonna switch it out for my narrow foot, which is oriented so that the opening for the needle will be right next to our bulky sequins. You can see right there. So I'm just gonna take this little bad boy off and slide him on. If you'd like some more information on these different types of presser feet and some awesome close-up, really great explanations, then we've got another video on that. So take a look at that over here. So I have my narrow foot on here, which is oriented so that the needle will come down directly next to the sequins, but we're trying not to actually hit the sequins. This is gonna be a little bit tricky here, but I know we can do it. I've also chosen as close a thread match as I can, and I'm gonna click down to about a stitch length of 2. Now, as I'm coming up, I'm going slow again because I'm really trying not to hit those sequins, just the mesh. And my dart is getting wider as I get closer to the top, which is of course, again, intentional. That is the point. We are making this side panel smaller and therefore taking the entire dress in overall. One of the things I love about this procedure as well is because the sewing is minimal, this is something that you'd be able to reverse really easily. The reason that's good is because, as I said, we're working on a prom dress. So the client here is 15, I think, and she may grow, she may want to let it out next year and wear it again, she may have a younger sister, she may sell it. All of the different reasons why it would be nice to be able to take this alteration out makes this a really nice, easy, reversible one. Ooh, look at that. That is great. Okay, let's pop over to the iron and get this take up pressed to the other side. This is a fun one. I'm loving it. I'm remembering how quickly this one goes. So really, all we're doing is taking that mesh dart that we just sewed. I'm giving it a little press just to make it nice and smooth and flat, and pushing it to the side so that you can't see it through the mesh panel. And then I'm just gonna throw a few pins in to hold it in place. And we are gonna take, again, that same matching color thread and sit down and just whip this edge with a little handy dandy whip stitch. Quick, easy materials. I'm using a sharp here. That's the name of the needle. It's just a nice, thin, short needle. And I'm using one single doubled over piece of thread that is the same color and weight as the thread that we used for the dart. So that's going to be a Tex 30, and it's not waxed, just right off the spool and in that nice matching skin tone color. Then I am just going to start right here up at my first pin, and I'm going to slide the needle through. And I think I'm going to reach like this to hold this in place because I want this to be smooth and flat. And then just like the name of the stitch, we're going to whip this bad boy down. So to keep it clean and pretty, I'm trying to take more pickup on the garment side and less on the mesh side so that you're just seeing kind of maybe little pock marks of thread, enough to hold it in place, but also trying to keep my stitches nice and small just because it's clean, it's pretty, it's professional, but this will be strong enough to hold it. The other thing that's really important here is that I'm making sure that I'm just attaching this to the lining. I am not sewing through to the other side at all. So from the outside of the garment, you will not know that this little dart is tucked up in there. But as you can see, the dart itself is almost 5/8 of an inch, so a little over a 1/2 inch, which makes it a full inch take up. And we're going to do that on the other side as well, giving us a really good, solid take-in. That's going to make a big difference on the fit of the garment for this young lady. So we're just going down, picking up lining, more lining, and then just a bit of fold. And really securing this well. And I'm pulling tight, but you see how if I pull too tight, it kind of bunches up like that? We don't want that. Keep it smooth as much as possible. So I'm kind of smoothing in between each stitch I take because this, both the mesh and the lining, are stretch materials. And so it's really easy to kind of make this too tight, too bunchy, and as soon as she puts it on, especially because it's stretch, it will just pop the seam right away. As much as I'd like to say hand sewing is as secure as machine sewing, it just isn't the case. So we're going to do our best here because we're doing this more decorative so that it stays put and out of the way, but this is not the load-bearing seam. As you recall, we just put that dart in. That one is going to take the most pressure from the wear. This is really just me wanting to hold this little guy in place. Ooh, see, okay. This is a great example of why I do love using wax gain, because you see how I'm getting a lot of these little tangles. That is just the nature of regular thread, but I feel like the wax gain in this case, because we're just doing this as more of a decorative stitch to keep everything looking pretty, I feel like the thinner thread is more appropriate for this case. So we're just gonna go slow and deal. Great, we're about halfway down. And as we go, the dart is getting thinner and thinner. And I'm using this thumb of my right hand here to continue holding the dart in place as I pull my pins out as I get further down. I don't like keeping the pins in while I sew past them because the pins are always going to hold the fabric in a little bit of a distorted fashion. Holding with your finger is going to be the flattest, smoothest way to keep all of the fabric in place as we're moving along stitching, especially in hand sewing. Yeah, see, you're watching me do that every time, which again, I think is important because that is how it will go. Just take the time to smooth it out. Take the time each time to make it nice and flat because this has the potential to look really beautiful, but we have to take our time when we're doing it. Awesome. And we are almost there. Look at how lovely that is looking. Wow. I would say there's probably about a 1/4 inch in between each of my stitches, and the thread is just, again, running behind that lining. You just can't quite see it. I've got a little bit of a catch in there. Ooh, okay. This is a great example. I've got a little knot right there. So unless I can pull that out, we might have to knot this off a little bit earlier than I wanted to. So I'm gonna have to pull that back through. Okay. Are you ready to watch me try to rewind this? Because of this knot, I cannot pull this thread all the way through. So I'm gonna gently try to pull my needle back through. Yes, it worked. Okay, cool. And you know what? We can just knot off right here. I think that's gonna be enough. So I'm gonna do my typical knot where I loop through. Yes, just like that. And then, as usual, hide my tails. And let's see if that pesky knot is gonna slide through for me. Yes, it will. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, now you could go back and finish this up, but I know that that's gonna hold that in place enough that I think we are good to go. The last thing that I wanna show you here is the other side that is still pinned from the fitting compared to this new take-up. You're gonna love this. So again, we still have the safety pins in on this side, but we transferred all of the take-up to the mesh. The important thing is we wanna make sure that we've taken the same amount, so when we go over to the other side, we're still getting the fit exactly right. So I'm gonna lay this mesh panel on top of the one we just completed and give myself a really rough check and see, yes, where we are. Oh, that's great. So if I fold the sequin so that it's right on top here, our 2 little mesh wedges should be almost exactly the same. Perfect. So now we're gonna take these safety pins out, put another dart and whip that guy down too, and we are all good to go. See, I told you, not so scary. Let's do a quick recap. All we had to do here was, in the fitting, we pinned this side, both sides, on the girl so that we could see how much it needed to come in. Then we transferred the full take-up into a dart strictly on the mesh side, and then all we had to do was sew that dart and then whip it down so it's pretty and stays out of the way so that when she puts this on, it won't flap over so that you'll be able to see it through the see-through. We also gave her a little bit more modesty, which is gonna make her feel good and comfortable and happy at the dance. So, easy one here. Ask me questions about this one and, comment, like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see you at the next one.